Good morning from New York. This is a Sunday morning. I hope this finds you well when you view this. That was not well stated, was it? No. Caught that? Anyway, today, like an old man, I'm gonna pick this up and I'm gonna read it. The glasses are a problem. Let's see. Democracy, War, and the Mystic. There we go. So today we're going to talk about democracy, war, and the mystic, and how this relates to inner-mind communication. As I've said so many times before, there are four basic perspectives, verbal perspectives that we have. And in that perspective, we have the dramatic self, which is at the core. It's the business end of who you are, right? Right? You experiencing your life emotionally. And emotions are connected to feelings, and feelings to needs. And needs, the meeting of those needs is love. And of course, that is expanded into the expression of the meeting of needs and the feeling of being loved, of course. And that kind of mirroring between people and within yourself is a love flow, which I mentioned in an earlier video. And that love flow comes from the dramatic self and you communicating with your creative, your empathetic, and your compassionate, your creative empathy, your compassionate empathy, and your objective empathy. Communicating between those perspectives and the dramatic self inside you. Did I finally get that right? I'm trying. Okay? So, when you communicate in those ways, and I believe I've described how you do those three dialogues or communications. What that does is helps you to grow in your empathy. Empathy, we're not so much born with that. We are, it's developed over time. It's what we get as we interact socially and evolve. And that's personal growth, spiritual growth. Okay. Now, how then the person who follows this path, especially if they follow the three communications involved with ego transcendence, the connection to the infant mind, which I've described as well. It's getting in touch with your ability to be mindful at play and expressive of and with your feelings. And centering on that and avoiding the impact of language in that process is part of the mystic path. And so are the verbal expressions. But when we're talking about politics and in democracy, we're dealing basically with the verbal aspects of being a mystic, as it's between yourself and other people, that involves language, communication between yourself and other actual people in the world. So when you're communicating in the world, and remember, the mystic knows that he or she is part, or whatever, as every individual mystic knows that they are a part of everything else, and that there isn't a firm division line between who they are in reality and the universe itself or other people and so on. That's a bit of an illusion, the subject-object illusion, which I've referred to, I believe, in the earlier videos. I forget, you know. Anyway, so we're dealing with the verbal aspects when we're talking, mostly, when we're talking about communication between one person and another. Of course, ego transcendence should always be there. You know, I mean, you should not be tied too heavily to who you think you are, because you are many in some ways. You are one with everything. It reminds me of the joke, you know, with the mystic goes and asks, you know, what he asks for a hot dog, and he wants one with everything. Or she, or they, as it goes, eh? So this, yeah, that plays a part. That's, you know, that's the whole namaste, honoring that in the other person, which is in you, and connects you, which is beyond ego. So, yeah, it's there. But we're going to focus on mostly on the verbal. Because that's the biggest part of the communication that you're going to do between yourself and others. Okay, that means that the mystic is involved in politics. It is involved with democracy, because democracy works because you have a balance between three basic institutions in society, and a good flow of communication, you know, between the business end of society, which is the kid in you, but business or trade in open society with other people, right? That's the institution that is like the kid in you. The compassionate empathy is usually, that institution is in the United States is referred to as church. It's a kind of extended family at its core, and that's, you know, its main perspective is compassion. Should be. Now with government, that's the objective empathy. And with the creative, the artist in you, I like to call it, that creative empathy in society that's the media. See, we've got these four institutions. The At the business end, where the tire meets the road, as you might say, where it's more about survival and more connected directly to need, that is business. So, in a democracy, the value of democracy is that everyone is working on achieving these forms of empathy, and you know, and at the core of it is business or trade. So, it's forms of government that get outside of that balance, or put all of its power in one of the voices, is not as functional and for a democracy. The balance of these things is precious and must be maintained. Caring means that you are dedicated to the freedom which the balance of these powers gives. It's the ultimate freedom, because freedom is the meeting of your needs, your wants, desires, to the best of what's possible. And this system is the way that this is done in society. So these social institutions are vital to understanding the role of a mystic. And in the Bhagavad Gita, you will see the mystic Arjuna engaging in war. Well, he's fighting the war to maintain the mystic way, which was exemplified by Krishna. He's fighting the war for virtuous purposes. Well, where do the virtues come from? Well, it comes from the three empathies and the trust that binds them together. That's how this works. So that trust is like what makes business go, what makes trade go. There's a lot of trust involved, and that trust also has to extend to into good communication between business and church, business and government and business and the media. These trust grows when needs are met, when love is flowing, when all these institutions are doing their job. Then things are working well in a democracy. And having the growth of that faith is the approach of democracy. As that trust grows, that faith in love grows, not only individuals grow and the society grows in good ways, but these powers have to be in balance. You can't have all of the power of voice in one of these, or two of these, or even three. You have to have all of the voices, because these three dialogues in society are important to produce, virtue. Now back to what I said about Krishna and Arjuna. Arjuna is fighting in a war, even though he's a mystic. Why is he doing that? Because he's supporting virtue. It means today, how does that translate? It means you're supporting democracy. Now, the mystic wants peaceful ways, and this is the way the United States tries to do things. Well, any democracy tries to do things through diplomacy and peaceful means. However, when democracy is attacked, it has to be defended. And the mystic defends. Why does the mystic defend? Because it's this overarching value to this process over the individual or anything. That is the basic goodness that you're supporting. It's meaningless to have virtues that you do not defend. So when you see someone attacking another person, you defend. You do as much collateral, as much as possible. You lower any collateral damage, but you do engage in defense. And this was the story of the Bhagavad Gita. And he says, well, it's just, the mystic Arjuna was overcome with compassion for all of the people on both sides. And he just gave up, and he says, I can't. And Krishna says, no, you must. You have, that's your duty. You're a warrior. That's your duty. So, yeah, a mystic supports this whole process, maybe in different ways. I mean, even during war, there are different roles to be played. Not all on the battlefield, but yeah, you have to be supportive of a just war. So this idea that if you're a mystic and you don't support democracy and you don't support these virtues, truth from objective empathy, artfulness, creativity from creative empathy, and goodness from compassionate empathy, and trust from the integration of these things into one's experience and the experience of a society. So it's overarching. And so it's then that, of course, Arjuna resumes the fight, because he was fighting for what was perceived as virtue at that time. Are we growing in our morality? I believe we are. The case I would make for that is that, for instance, in the early days where these communications were not refined and working as well, is more about just surviving. We don't, as soon as the kids were going, into puberty at 12, we, says, oh, yeah, sure, they're grown up now. There's even little ceremonies today in religion, so kind of referring to that is this important turning point, but a lot of people in the long ago thought that was kind of grown up, so they could marry at 12. Oh, wow. Well, when you don't have these empathies going, things get weird. They do. So, when you're looking at the role of the mystic, it is to fight for virtue. And yes, we have evolved into a more peaceful and caring world, despite what people think. All the naysayers. There's rules of war that we have that are more evolved. They used to just go in and commit genocide in a war. I mean, that was typical. You go in, you wipe everybody out, and men, women, kids, and all. It's not very democratic. Not the way mystic behaves. Ideally. So yeah, and even though our abilities to kill one another have grown exponentially, our willingness to do so has decreased. Thank heavens. So people are kind of holding back from using weapons that can, wipe us all off the face of the earth. Yeah. And I would wish for a little better than that, but that's how we're growing toward a better humanity, I believe. That's why I have great faith in democracy, and we must defend it. Period. So, can a mystic be in the armed services? Yes. Can a mystic be a butcher? Well, yes. There's this thing about the killing of animals and things, so yeah, well, that's the force of survival, and we're growing in that way. I believe that meat eating will be at an end when we're capable of surviving well without the need of doing that. So you do live in the real world, and somebody in a very cold place needs to eat meat. They need to fish. Fish, that's meat. They need fish, and it's a big part of their diet, Whole ground is covered with snow. Come on. So, this is how this works. As we become more integrated and society becomes more integrated, things get better. Democracy rules. And, this is very important. Now, you can criticize democracy as potentially being the tyranny of the majority over the minority. But with the forces of empathy at play, that works against democracy going in that direction. Because with empathy, you feel and understand another's perspective, right? So that makes me very supportive of democracies, and why some of us can get choked up about it. That's right. Because it connects to all of these values. To say that you're being spiritual but not religious, That's what a mystic is. You know, they don't base their spirituality on something written in an ancient book that they have to believe. It's more about the experience within themselves of this mystic path, this spiritual path. You can be religious and a mystic, but you don't have to be. And you can see the ultimate reality as a superior human being that you can relate to. Sure. In process, that's fine. You can see it as not, as more abstract kind of view. But everyone has a sense of what is the total reality. I guarantee you the total reality, since things show an evolution in this falling apart universe toward greater empathy in intelligent societies. I would say this is probably true around the universe. And other universes, I would still guess that, yeah, even there, something like this would be at play. But, yeah, maybe not. You know, there may be no life in some universes. Okay, well, but there would be probably infinite numbers of universes in which this is true. And a lot of other discussions that can be had about the nature of the self. And I encourage you to go to YouTube channels that, especially those involved with scientific research, you know, into the brain and neurology and so forth. A true mystic is not certain about everything they believe. They know that their view is the best guess from how they imagine things to be, and they are therefore more tolerant in general of other people doing the same. And if we all realize that that's what we are doing, we might get along a little better. So, you say, well, yeah, what about choice of a political party? Well, that's up to you in a democracy, but I would suggest that you look for the party that is most balanced, that includes all of these forms of empathy, and that helps to grow trust in the system and supports democracy. If, you know, and I think you should pick that party, the one that you find that does that the most, in your opinion. I want to wrap this up now. I hope that this has been somewhat helpful. You can disagree with me. Yeah. You can be a pacifist also and be a mystic, I suppose. Yes. You can be supportive of democracy in a number of ways. So, yes. But that's a different kind of role that a person would take as a mystic. So, but that person should not be against someone else performing that role. So total pacifism, you can work toward peace, or you can work to defend the peace. I don't see the big difference, but you need to be accepting of all the roles that are necessary in defending democracy, no matter what they are. And of each other. So, love each other, care about yourself as well as others. Understand that who you are is a wonderment, and that's true of everyone you gaze upon. They are a wonder walking, if they're walking. They are a wonder. They are a wonderment. And there's a beauty with wonder that goes beyond appearances. And I hope that you have that deep in your heart, that you follow the mystic way. Namaste.